Welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast, featuring advice and interviews about athlete branding. Learn how marketing, public relations, and broadcasting can grow your brand. We also have special episodes to talk about recent news, events, and anything in the world of sports. The podcast is sponsored by Pliable, a versatile marketing, PR, and broadcasting company that identifies opportunities and creates tailored content for its clients. Now it's time to roll. Here's your host, Greg Glenn.
Thanks, and welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. In this episode, we're talking about NFTs. What is an NFT? We'll be talking about how college and professional athletes are using them to monetize their name, image, and likeness. Today's guest is Nick Jacobs, head of product at Blockchain Made Easy LLC. Nick has been building digital products for Fortune 500 companies for the last 6 years. He started his career at TD Bank, where he led the building of the bank's first online lending platform for small businesses. He was awarded the TD Bank Employee of the Year Award for his leadership in building a digital lending platform for the Paycheck Protection Program to support small businesses through the COVID-19 pandemic. Since leaving TD Bank, Nick and BZ have focused on providing easier-to-use platforms and tools for content creators, brands, and artists, as well as athletes, to get involved in the NFT space. Nick led the development of a blockchain product that allows customers to create custom NFT marketplaces at a fraction of the cost. The product also allows these creators to sell NFTs through a traditional e-commerce website like Shopify and monitor all ownership and transactional data. He's got a lot of great information to share with us, and athletes certainly want to pay attention to what's going on in the NFT space and how to monetize their name, image, and likeness. So with that said, Nick, welcome to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast.
Thank you.
So wanted to talk with you, obviously, about this space. This is growing space. I was even listening to the Kevin Garnett Rafter presentation, and they were talking about NFTs and how he was being awarded 5 collectible NFTs. And that was kind of a big moment for me about NFTs, because it's showing people now, wait a second, what's an NFT? And I think a lot more people that used to grow up like myself collecting baseball cards are now all of a sudden going to say, maybe it's time I look into NFTs. So I'm glad we get to connect today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think there's just a lot of great, exciting things overlapping in that space as it relates to NFTs, but just more so just the blockchain technology, man. It has so many possibilities to open up doors across industries, right? We're seeing the most coming out of sports and entertainment right now. But I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see this technology be adapted across different landscapes, healthcare, banking, you name it.
So let's dive into this, because I think one of the things I want to do is help our listeners to walk through this process and maybe get a few definitions out of the way. So first, how would you define NFTs and the way they're being used right now?
So I would just define an NFT as a unique digital asset, right? It can be anything represented as a JPEG, it can be a film, it can be a ticket, any sort of digital asset can be made uniquely and represented on a blockchain as an NFT.
So then what is a blockchain?
Okay. A blockchain is essentially a mutable ledger. So all the same thing, same thing when you get a receipt and that goes on. Essentially think of a blockchain as a place where now everything is transacted digitally and made transparent to everybody who wants to view them. So for instance, if I have, if I go purchase something, that transaction gets reflected on the blockchain. I create something. That's a transaction that gets reflected on the blockchain. So when you look at NFTs, they're just a coupling of an actual asset, whether it be a photo, a film, it could be a contract itself that then gets reflected onto that blockchain, on that ledger. And it's visible for everybody at any point in time, and it doesn't go anywhere.
Very interesting. And this is going to obviously change the entire landscape of probably a lot of, as I mentioned, their content creators. So I even think about photographers, I think about entertainers, you think about the value now of someone's name, image, and likeness. and the way that college athletes are starting to use their own, now all of a sudden NFTs really are an incredible space to be getting into, because they're going to be able to monetize themselves and their intellectual properties a lot better and a lot faster, and probably a lot more profitable.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, especially when you look at the athletes, right? A lot of the moments that they create are already memorialized in some way, right? But the instance, they can't monetize it themselves. So now, if you think even the legendary Jordan hitting the game-winning shot for UNC, right? That's memorialized everywhere in sports history. Jordan never saw a dime for that specific play. Now a player can say, yeah, I had the best buzzer beater. I'm even thinking Kemba Walker's buzzer beater from UConn, right? I can now memorialize that on a blockchain, make it immutable. Now that I can sell and track the scarcity and limit that scarcity of that asset and sell it as almost a tradable collectible, right? So now I can take real moments that I've created, memorialize them, and monetize them.
Right. So let's walk this through. I think this will be an interesting example. So let's say we've got obviously the NCAA tournament coming up, right? And we all know there's going to be memories made, memorable shots. There may be an NCAA championship winning shot, moment, pose, whatever it may be. If I am Bob Smith and I hit the game-winning shot, what should I be thinking about right out of the gate as far as that moment goes, and how I would monetize that from an NFT perspective? What would Michael Jordan have wanted to do, right? That's kind of, I guess, the question.
Yeah. So, and obviously I'm biased, so I'm going to talk about how you would use our platform to do that, right? So I would say, all right, I made this big play, right? I hit this game-winning shot. Now it's to say, okay, I'm everywhere. ESPN is showing this all over the place. I'm getting followers left and right now, trying to see what I've been doing this entire time.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would say, all right, let me work with, obviously I love to work with, artists on campus, right? For instance, I'm a college athlete. There's plenty of artists on campus, but even artists outside of that. I want to recreate that moment in a digital representation, right? Think about your posters, for instance, right? Where it's, this really cool graphic of me with my shot up, someone's contesting the shot. I would create that. I would go and upload it into a platform like the one that Beezy's created. And I would actually create that as an NFT, limit how many of those that people can actually buy. And then I would go sell those. And what I would do alongside selling them alone as an actual product, I would say anybody who buys this NFT, I'm going to sign a jersey and I'm going to ship that over to you. So now I was able to create an asset, sell that asset, but then also create a direct relationship with me and all the people that were inspired by that moment that I just created. And then, again, you could assume that they're not going to want to go anywhere after they bought that first one. And I'm going to continuously create moments like this and evolve as a player and create outlets in which my community and my fans can get involved with me.
Right. Okay. So let's say, hit the game-winning shot. What's the time frame for trying to get something to turn it around that quickly, right? Because as we know, the time is ticking every day, every hour, every second that goes by. You're in this 24-hour news cycle. That's important to get that up, I would imagine, fairly quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, the great thing is, if you even just took a snapshot of the play, you can even just go and sell that within minutes, right? I can go onto a platform like the BZ Forge. I can list that asset for sale on a Shopify store. I can use platforms like OpenSea, for instance, as well. But being able to just get the moment memorialized as the art piece, that's probably where the longest hurdle is, the longest time will be, because it's just to say, how creative do you want to get? Right? If you want to create some really unique 3D piece, it might take a bit longer. But if you just want to get something out quick, yeah, just capture that moment, take a snapshot of it, upload that, and you're off to the races.
Let's throw this scenario out there. As more and more people learn about NFTs, I'm thinking, we've got somebody on the sidelines, front row seats, takes an amazing shot of this game-winning shot in the NCAA tournament. And they're like, wow, I just captured this amazing moment on my phone. And it's a really good photo, because nowadays, quite honestly, we all have pretty darn good phones on our camera phone. So what would that person do? They would obviously need to set up an account, right, with you. And if they were already set up, it would make it so much easier. All they'd have to do is just upload the image, and then they would set the price, right? How do we work on pricing? Let's talk about that.
So I feel like to back up for one moment, I think there's something we are missing in that is just the licensing with all of it, right? So if that person is to sell my name, image, and likeness as the player, they really shouldn't be able to do so. And even on the same vein, right, the NCAA owns a lot of the footage that comes out of those moments. So you can't necessarily say I can just take any and everything. But if I'm the player, right, for instance, I can actually, and this is that part of that recreation, right, is I can actually add my own flair and branding around it to remove any of those licensing issues. Because, we're working right now with a lot of the CLC, who owns the licensing rights for a lot of the college universities. And there's a lot of gets into the trademark if you use any of the logos of a university or a brand, for instance. But if I'm a player, I can just set my brand as the actual standard that gets reflected in that design. And then thusly I'm able to sell. And in terms of price point, it varies, right? You can see some people wanting to sell it just for $50. Some people are selling at the higher end of a couple $100. It really just depends on, I would say, the creative that comes into it, right? So if you're that high name, high caliber athlete, and you're going to go make millions of dollars next year at the pro level, obviously that impacts the price point. But even thinking about even what Oregon just did with their NFT drop, right? They had Tinker come in and actually create the art pieces. So now you have a very well-known art designer actually adding his IP into the mix, which elevates that price point again. So I would say it really varies along the parties involved, and you can find a lot of different ways in terms of like being flexible with your pricing, because you don't want to outprice yourself that people can't get involved, but you also want to set something to actually know your worth as well.
Right. So let's go back to that example then. Let's say the player's from Duke and ends up making the game-winning shot, and all of a sudden ready to, let's say they're already doing some type of smaller nil deals and everything like that. By winning the game, being in a Duke uniform, how does that athlete need to think about this opportunity and removing either Duke or like you said, branding it themselves, which I think is where interestingly enough for our listeners, that's where the athlete branding part comes in that I talk a lot about, is if you can put your own brand on it, now you are creating the asset, correct?
That's correct. And I would say that question has a lot of components to it. Some universities have chosen not to opt into some of these group licensing deals, meaning the players can now actually use the brands to their full disposal. Right?
So Duke may or may not allow the athlete to use their name.
So that athlete should check to see what's possible. Let's go into the case that it's not possible, right? The name on that jersey is the brand, right? Me as that actual player, that's the brand that needs to get reflected. So I can use similar color schemes. I can just remove that Duke and focus everything around the play.
So what would you be saying about kind of like photoshopping Duke out?
Yes. So what I've even done with some of my brands that we work with on the creative side is taking some of those logos for those teams and almost recreating it around my name. My name is
That's what I've talked about. Yep, exactly.
I'm able to now create that, still referencing where I'm actually playing, but not saying I'm playing at Duke University. Right. Everyone knows that this moment happened because everyone watched it. So they know who I am. So me as the player, I take the forefront of this NFT. Right. I'm not riding on the back of Duke. I'm riding on Nick Jacob.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So that's what I would tell that player.
Okay. And then what about concerns about anyone else in the photo? Let's say this shot, right, that we have, and there's people in the background and there's probably 100 to 200 people. Do we need to be concerned about that?
No, so you would mainly be, and this is one of the cool things around with, recreating that piece, you can blur out a lot of that. So if you just took that photo and threw it into Photoshop, you could blur out the entire background and highlight the court, right? And highlight that moment. But what I'm encouraging a lot of the brands is, create a cartoon version of yourself, right? Take that. And, we have a lot of different partners in our network, and we're working with a lot of universities to give better outlets to these players to be able to recreate these moments very easily. So create a cartoon version of yourself, and you don't have to worry about all of those other people maybe involved. But the main issue is that the licensing parties are the ones you really want to be keeping your eye out. So it's not so much for concern about the fans, but you want to make sure you're not running the issue with the NCAA or the actual university itself. And so working with the university, you can find out, hey, like for instance, University of Florida, they did not opt in onto some of the group licensing deals. So some of those players can actually use those brand marks in any of the assets that they sell. And the universities, some are actually getting behind the players and encouraging them to use their marks because it's only uplifting that actual player. And then even on the backside of that, if universities are able to get behind players like that, only recruiting is going to go through the roof.
That's where I would be. You and I would be in that camp.
I'm the high school player, and I'm like, wow, look at what they were able to go do.
He's at the University of Florida. I want to go to the University of Florida.
Exactly that.
I completely see where that's going, and I am right on board with that because I know that already, and I've actually been speaking with colleges already about presenting about athlete branding because there is tremendous value in having a school where you support your athletes and you allow them the platform to be able to use the brand. And I feel it's only going to help the brand as well. So right on board with you there. I like your idea about the cartoon and kind of like the Bitmoji, if you will, of trying to create that for yourself, because then you could really create the moment again, but in a cartoon sake. So that then that becomes a collectible, and maybe now you're starting to pick up even some people that might collect comic books or comic related stuff, and that's a huge industry, right?
Oh my God, it's massive. I mean, I literally was just on the phone with one of the brands that I'm working with to actually promote a project working with athletes, and that was one of the aspects we talked about, is right, this narrative element, right, where it's like I collected these pieces, but these pieces also tell a story about myself and my journey. Right. So imagine if you memorialized everything on a blockchain. I mean, I think LeBron James would be a great example. You took every moment LeBron created in high school up till now, where he's been the same player for the last 20 years. Right. There's an unbelievable element in there around telling the story and the arc of LeBron James as a player. And now me as a fan, I can own specific moments of those. Exactly. And now you can even say, one of the things that I love about this NFT space is this aspect of community. Right. And rewarding those fans that have been so loyal to you. And now you can say, yeah, if you've been collecting my pieces up till now, I'm going to give things back to you. Right. I'm going to be, I'm that star player that's going to play on a professional team. And now I'm giving back tickets to games to the people that have collected my story along the way, because you believed in me when no one else did. Right. I think there's so many stories of these underdogs being able to fight against adversity. And, first person comes to mind when I think about that is Duncan Robinson. Right. Duncan Robinson playing at the Heat, started at Williams. I'm a NESCAC guy. I actually played against Duncan in high school because we went to the same prep school league.
Where did you go in the Where did you go in the NESCAC, Nick?
I went to Tufts.
Okay. Guy. Excellent. Yeah, I'm up here in the Colby Bates Bowdoin world. So.
Oh, okay. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So actually, I almost went to play basketball at Bates.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of so being able to say because there's so many underdog stories, and a lot of those players, you don't hear their story until they are the guy. But what if I had the opportunity to invest, or not necessarily invest, but support a player on that journey? Because it's hard as a player, right? You're constantly getting scrutinized in the media for not playing well. You're, going up against tough competition every day in, day out, and you're expected to play at the highest level. But being able to say, yeah, I have my fans support me from day one. And they've been able to be on this journey for me when I was playing, again, using Duncan as an example, then I was playing at Williams. And then I went to Michigan. And now I'm in the G League. And now I'm on the Heat. And now I'm a signed player starting on the Miami Heat, which is definitely a contender for the championship this year. That's an unbelievable story to be a part of. And to say that, yeah, I bought it when that first NFT when it was only $25. And now assets for you are going out a couple $100. Right. There's an avenue in tying that community to the player and letting that player be able to be supported, knowing that they are going to do great things on the court, but being able to be supported off the court is really where this is really exciting.
That's awesome. So let's take this another step. I like our conversation here and how we're kind of progressing. So let's say we've got Bob Smith. He makes that shot for Duke. He's maybe made a cartoon image of himself, created this NFT, and now all of a sudden, thinking about, okay, how does this work for the person who's then going to buy the Bob Smith NFT? If I'm, Greg Glynn, and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I want to have that because that just means a lot to me. What an amazing shot. I was either there. Maybe he's my favorite player. What do I want to do as a fan to be able to get that? And what can I do with it? How long do I hold on to it? What is my investment kind of worth?
Yeah, so using the Beezy platform, right, that player, Bob Smith, will be able to actually sell that NFT through a Shopify store, right? So you as a buyer now, I just need to set up a Beezy wallet, which is made publicly available. Just go set up an account.
Anybody can do that. Any fan, anybody, right?
Anybody can go do that. Then I just go over to Bob Smith's Shopify store. I connect my wallet to it. Everyone who's going to go buy an NFT, you need a wallet. The reason for that is the same thing as saying, if I bought a physical product and never gave you a shipping address, you don't know where to send that product to, right? A blockchain wallet is essentially your address on the blockchain, meaning you can now receive blockchain assets, NFTs, cryptocurrencies in that wallet.
In the wallet.
So what I would do is I go set up a wallet. I go over
just so I walk people through this. if I have a wallet, I only need to set up one wallet. I don't set it up on multiple NFT sites or anything, right? I can set up one wallet.
You can set up one wallet. Yes, exactly. Some people, as you get more familiar, you may set up multiple wallets. But typically your wallet is going to be based off of the blockchain you're using. So if I'm using Ethereum or Polygon, I'm going to be looking at MetaMask, Coinbase. The BZ wallet is also one of those as well. If you're looking at blockchains like Solana, you're probably going to be looking at a Phantom wallet. So it really just depends on the blockchain you're using. I would say the majority of people are using Ethereum compatible wallets, just because Ethereum has had a bit of the market dominance for the last 5 years or so, and I don't see that changing probably too much anytime soon. Solana obviously has been getting a lot of traction, but all you're going to want to do is set up a wallet that is compatible with the blockchain of that individual marketplace. So if we're using the BZ storefront for Bob Smith, that's on Polygon. So you can use a Polygon wallet, which is compatible with MetaMask, the BZ wallet, Coinbase wallet, any wallet that can support Polygon. Then all you need to do, connect that one wallet to the storefront and then purchase that NFT. The benefit of using the BZ platform is that when you go to Shopify, you're buying that NFT the same way you go buy a t-shirt. Put your credit card in and check out. You don't have to have any cryptocurrencies at all in order to buy those NFTs from that Shopify store. Now, if you want to go take that asset and say, Bob Smith is going crazy in the in the NCAA tournament, or he's in the pros now and he's doing
gets drafted,
well.
Yeah,
exactly, drafted very high and his stock is just going through the roof. You're like, okay, maybe I want to resell one of the assets I purchased. You can go over to OpenSea, list that asset for sale. Now, when you're transacting on OpenSea, you're going to be using cryptocurrencies. So when you list that asset for sale, when someone goes and buys it, they're going to be buying that with a cryptocurrency, most likely Ethereum or wrapped Ethereum. And so in that case, let's say I listed that for sale and now someone wants to go purchase that, they will need to get their wallet funded with the cryptocurrency. And there are so many different exchanges to go do that with. And I would say whatever one is more comfortable for you to get used to is probably the best one to use.
And what are, because now we're going to get into crypto here a little bit. So it's interesting that when you want to sell what you have, right? When you want to sell that NFT, when it comes time that you're ready and you feel like, it's peaked and the value is, ready to go. That's when you're saying that you have to buy it with crypto. So someone cannot buy something from someone else with a credit card. They have to do it with crypto.
So no. So what I was saying is, when you resell that asset on a secondary marketplace, most secondary marketplaces require you to use a cryptocurrency. When you buy from Shopify, you do not need a cryptocurrency.
Right, okay. Yeah.
When you buy from OpenSea, you'll most likely need a cryptocurrency. OpenSea has integrated with MoonPay, which is a company focused around allowing for people to purchase NFTs using a credit card. They have integrated there, so you can most likely use your credit card to purchase it. But I have seen some NFTs are actually still only allowed to be bought with the actual cryptocurrencies themselves.
Okay, interesting. And give me your thoughts on cryptocurrency. Obviously, we've seen Super Bowl ads. We've seen many more ads. I mean, crypto right now is very big. So give me kind of your lay of the land right now on the crypto space.
I think cryptocurrencies are a great tool in the way that they decentralize financial institutions and financial, instruments. I hold a couple cryptos because I'm actually, active in the NFT marketplaces. And, I like the idea of, investing in crypto as an asset. I would say that I think there's a lot of technologies that are getting implemented right now to disintermediate the need for cryptocurrencies to transact on a blockchain, which I think is a big step in the right direction for driving adoption. I don't think everything needs to be tied into a cryptocurrency. I think even, as you think about adoption for financial institutions, banks are not going to all possibly accept cryptocurrencies as a form of payment, right? But you're still going to need to perform transactions on a blockchain if that company or that bank is using the technology.
Right.
So having these tools in place to be able to transact using fiat are going to be imperative. And I think crypto's going nowhere. I don't think it's going to be completely eradicated or disintermediated. But I definitely think that there needs to be an emphasis on being able to use the technology without the need for cryptocurrencies.
Okay, that makes sense. And then if, we're talking about obviously athletes, let's say there is a high school athlete, that's looking to try and do some things. Obviously, there's different state rules where some athletes can benefit from their name, image, and likeness. There are certain states that you can't. How would someone go about starting to create one of these if they were even in high school? What would they do?
So I think, there's a lot of opportunity for high school athletes to get involved into this. And it would be all around what we've talked about, branding yourself, right? I love the thought that everyone's going to go to the NBA and go make all this money and go be a professional athlete, but it's hard. It's really, really hard, and you can't guarantee it. But what you can guarantee is that while you have these moments, right, and you have these ideas around yourself as an athlete and a brand, you can use NFTs as a medium of exchange to now build out your brand. Right. And you'll see a lot of the projects that have come out in the NFT space are using NFTs as a mechanism to fund the rest of that project and the rest of that business. Yeah. Athletes should think about it along the same lines. Right. So if you're an athlete and you're like, wow, I've been able to play very well at the high school level, I'm probably going to go play at the college level, but you're not necessarily sure you want to go as far as to try to be a pro, but you have a lot of knowledge of your sport and you want to teach the next generation. You can use NFTs as a way to build a camp. Right. So I can now start training sessions. That's one of the things I did. I used to be a basketball coach for my old high school, and I used to train athletes. And a lot of previous players end up training athletes. NFTs is a really great way to say I started my own camp because I use those NFTs as tickets into the camp. So now players can say, yeah, I was able to go get a training session from star high school basketball player or big local star at his community. Right. One of the things we talk about with the blockchain and the NFT world is money is or value is determined by a community. So even if I'm in a small town playing at a high school, but I've been able to build that community around myself, I can now incentivize that community to get more involved with me. So now I can say, hey, great. You guys have all been supporting me. I used to play at a small town out in Boston or out in Massachusetts. And, I was one of the first freshmen to play in like 25 years on the varsity level. Right. So I was always in the newspaper. We were doing very well. Being able to say, okay, great. I can start an entire project around that, where it says, okay, great, we have a summer camp that we want to put together where me and some of the other varsity basketball players are going to sell NFTs as tickets to all the kids in the community for them to now come and participate with us who are playing at the highest level that they can see right now and have visibility to, and train them as the next generation, right? That one of the things that my high school did was we actually did a summer camp where we actually worked with a lot of the community kids and trained them, and they learned from the varsity players. But now kids can do that themselves, right? You don't have to worry about the high school helping to, organize that. A player can do it themselves using NFTs as that medium of exchange.
Right. So they then would buy the NFT, come to the camp, and now all of a sudden they have that NFT. So let's say that player does go on to college or maybe goes pro, whatever it may be. Now that, young child would have invested essentially and been able to get that NFT at a very early age when that player was at the, start of their career.
Exactly.
That's very interesting. And so then I also wanted to talk about, obviously, the blockchain applications in sports and entertainment industry. We've talked a lot about athletes. In other ways are you seeing this be used? I was talking with some of your team about, venues using NFTs, collectibles using NFTs, sports merchandise places using NFTs. What are we looking at kind of next big picture thing?
The biggest thing that I see NFTs is tickets. It'd be an unbelievable use case, right? Because if you think about it, if I go buy a ticket today, I get a PDF sent to me.
Yeah.
That shows me my ticket, right? And that ticket is essentially a contract saying you have bought the rights to this seat in our stadium at this date and time. What is that ticket if not a unique digital asset? Right? Now I can represent that as an NFT. And what you've done now as the brand that has been able to do that, you've actually allowed for a secondary market to be created where you can now, typically counterfeit tickets is a big issue. Every NFT can represent a ticket, and now it's memorialized on the blockchain. I can verify the authenticity of the ticket. And now what I can do as the brand of the stadium owner, the same way that, they have, I was watching, I think the Celtics the other day, they did, these dogs were racing at halftime, and the dog that won that section was able to win a reward. Right? They're like, oh, you guys got a free concession.
Right.
You can tie that into the NFT now.
NFT.
And I can say now, if you're in this section on this day and at this time, you're going to get this X reward, right? It can be free t-shirt. It can be free concessions. It could be another NFT, right? So you can now create these unique loyalty programs where fans are able to not only get the immediate value of that asset, but any residual value that might come with it. So now brands have really unique ways to now incentivize people to come back in the stadiums, right? I'm talking right now with La Liga around some of these really unique concepts around looking at how the ticketing system and the ticketing monetization process can be completely revolutionized using NFTs.
Yeah.
It's a really, really cool new way of thinking about things.
Well, let me throw this at you, because I actually keep a book of games that I go to, tickets. You know, back in the day, they used to print the tickets and they didn't have any branding. They didn't have any branding or anything like that. And they were basically nothing. You know, it was just a ticket.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just lost it. Can you say that again?
Yep, no problem. So back in the day, when we bought tickets, they were just pieces of paper. There was no branding. There was no nothing. And what I ended up doing when tickets started to get a little more flashy, was I would start keeping them because they look nice, and you never know like what could happen at that game. So I always keep my ticket because you never know, someone could set some record and you want to be holding that ticket. I was there, etc. So there's a part of me that thinks along those same lines. At some point, if I go to a no hit, let's say NFTs are in play, I buy an NFT ticket, I go to the game, I then have the NFT of the Bob Smith no-hitter. And all of a sudden, now, if I have that NFT, maybe like you're talking about digitally, could I maybe then sell or have someone want to buy that NFT? Like the ticket, right?
Yep, exactly. And even thinking to take that one step further, let's say you couldn't actually go to the game, but let's say you're like, oh, well, I have this ticket and I want to do something with it. I can actually resell it before the game. Right.
So yeah, so you're gonna get, so it's almost like the same situation where it's My Seats or all these other platforms. But now what you're saying is the actual individual could take care of it themselves.
Exactly. And the cool thing about this too is brands can completely own the supply and demand, right? So what they can do is they can say, all right, for every NFT that we've sold as a ticket, anybody who comes to those games and actually uses that NFT as a ticket, you're going to be now incentivized to XYZ. So what you do in marketing that prior to the actual game, someone can say, wow, I think I'd rather resell this off the chance that I'll make more money because I don't, necessarily have time to go to the game.
Right.
Now that brand can even say, all right, every time this gets resold, we want a royalty kick back to us. So now they're able to make money on a secondary market. The fan is able to still make money on reselling their ticket in a legal way because that's an actual ticket. They're not counterfeiting it in any way. And then the person who actually goes to the game is still able to cash in the utility when they get to the game. So it becomes this, everyone who's involved in the community is able to win, right? Because there's all transparency. The blockchain handles all of the transactional mechanisms for it and provides it in a way that's transparent. So there's really no way for this game to kind of get hacked. It allows for so much more creativity in the way that brands want to create a unique experience for their fans. And aside from just the game, right? Because I talked about that, the Boston Celtics with the puppies racing. It was a great little video. I love watching the little dogs, but it's like I can do that as an NFT as well, right? Without having to have those dogs compete. And the fans are still incentivized in ways that they're not right now, right? I'm just going to go to the game. But what if I can go to the game and get a little bit extra, right? Now you're going to see people who maybe are saying, I can watch the game on TV, but they're like, well, now I want to go get in the stands because I might be missing out on really cool things that those brands are doing.
Right. And also too, I mean, I think about it from a sponsorship perspective. Let's say there's a lucky seat of the game and then everybody wants to go and check to see if they're the lucky seat. Well, if they're checking it on their phone and all of a sudden, let's say the Boston Celtics run a Vistaprint ad right before someone wants to open up to see their seat number or whatever, they could almost run a little promo ad, and then someone has to see the ad before they get to the information they're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see that being a huge benefit as well. Let's talk about NFTs as a rights management tool. Explain to me this.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, what is an NFT if not a unique digital asset? And a lot of contractual agreements are represented as unique digital assets. So as you mentioned, I came out of a lending background, right? I was working at small business lending at TD Bank, and we built out the online lending platform. Each of those loans was represented as a unique digital asset. So what I'm saying is now I can easily, using NFTs, distribute my rights digitally. So we're working with a lot of musicians and artists, right? People who have IP that's very much guarded and protected by a lot of stakeholders, right? But now I can say, okay, let's say you want to use my song in a film, right? I can actually sell the rights of my song to you to go use in that film. And once you've used it in that film, you can now resell those rights to somebody else. And I'm been working with an art gallery out in New York that is actually looking to license out their art pieces to other institutions to view in, let's say, not a museum, but let's say if you're throwing an event and you want a unique art piece put up, you can license this for 3 days to go put that in your event, right? So I can distribute my rights all using the NFTs that are tokenizing and compiling it into a smart contract that gets reflected on the blockchain. And in that, what we do with our BZ platform, again, as I mentioned, we can add a contractual agreement on there to say how your rights are actually being managed and maintained. So I can say, okay, you're going to buy my art piece and you're going to put it in your gallery for 3 days because you're running an event. In that contract, I'm going to say, okay, the license for this duration is 3 days. If this asset is used beyond these 3 days, you're liable in XYZ. And I can distribute that to you just using my marketplace today, the same way you would go buy my art pieces. So it opens up these doors. And that's really where I see the value and benefit in NFTs, is the fact that I can distribute my rights to you digitally and in perpetuity. And I can track the ownership of my rights using the BZ platform. So I can sell off those rights as NFTs. And this is where, we love the, non-fungible token, but what a non-fungible token is a tokenized asset. Tokenization is a game changer because it allows for any digital asset to now be a smart asset and report on itself. So I can sell that contract off to you, and that contract is going to tell me, yeah, they're using it over here, and this is the person who owns it. Oh, they resold to that person. Okay, now they have this license. Or they can't resell this because it's a one-off sale for that license. It gets into this, it opens up these doors for now people who have been working under very traditional distribution models that have a lot of middlemen. A lot of people are just coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to add my own verification in here and I'm going to mark that up XYZ. To now say, me as a creator, I have full control of my rights and I can sell them to whoever. And I can myself, using the blockchain and platforms like what BZ has built, to track and maintain the integrity of that IP. It's a game changer.
Very cool. I like that. So one of the things I also want to talk about is best way for people to kind of follow along. Obviously, you're going to have a digital following, for people who enjoy what you do. You're going to be having people that follow you on social media. So let's make sure we get out there how people can get in touch with you, Nick, or how they can kind of follow what you're up to.
Yeah, so my Instagram is richboydolo. I am a creative as much as I am a technologist, so that's where you get that name from. Follow me on IG. I've been working with a lot of different brands. You can find me on Twitter, NikkiJ2095. I'm very involved in the NFT communities. I'm running a project that's getting ready to launch something really exciting, so you definitely want to tap in with me now. And yeah, please stay engaged with us. BZ has a Twitter account at BZ Inc.
And I have really enjoyed this conversation. There's a lot of things that people are going to learn about athlete branding. I think this is one of the most fascinating ways that athletes are going to be able to leverage their name, image, and likeness. And I think that the work that you're doing now, we're going to look back 5-10 years from now, and it's going to be incredible to see the growth in this space. So I really appreciate your time, Nick.
Thank you, Greg. It's always a pleasure. We'd love to come back whenever you want to have me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to do that. We'll continue certainly more of this conversation about NFTs. We'll also talk more about athlete branding as well. I'm sure you're going to start to land some larger athletes like I know you already have, and some of these colleges you're talking to. We mentioned a few colleges here today, but we're going to be staying in touch. So everyone, appreciate you tuning in to this episode. And Nick, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Athlete Brand Advisor Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes from today's episode and catch up on recent episodes at pliablemarketing.com. We also encourage you to share topics and guest ideas by emailing our production staff at pliablemarketing@gmail.com. We love hearing from our loyal listeners and athletes who want to grow their brand. So jump in and be part of the podcast, because that's how we roll.